If you ever notice that when most people talk about Jewish history, the spotlight almost always falls on men? Names like Abraham, Moses, King David, and Solomon are instantly recognizable. They dominate our textbooks, our sermons, and our cultural memory. But here's the uncomfortable truth. History, as it's usually told, often pushes women to the margins. And yet, without these women, without their courage, faith, and sheer resilience, much of Jewish history as we know it might not even exist. That's what this video is about. We're going to uncover the untold stories of Jewish women, voices that were too often silenced, yet shaped the destiny of an entire people. Some of these women were queens, prophetesses, poets, revolutionaries, mothers, and resistance fighters. Others are ordinary women whose names we'll never know, but whose choices and sacrifices held communities together when everything else was falling apart. So, if you've ever wondered what's hidden beneath the surface of the biblical narratives or the sweeping dramas of Jewish history, stay with me, because by the end of this journey, you'll see that women were never just bystanders. They were builders, fighters, and visionaries in their own right. 1. Women in the Bible and Ancient Judaism. Let's start where it all begins, the Bible. Now, if you only read the surface-level stories, women seem like they're always in the background, wives, mothers, or side characters in the lives of men. But if you look closer, you'll realize that some of the most pivotal moments in Israel's history depended on women. Think about Sarah. For most people, she's just Abraham's wife. But her story is really about faith tested to its limits. She was promised a child when every biological reality said it was impossible. And when Isaac was finally born, it wasn't just a personal victory, it was the foundation for an entire people. Sarah's patience and faith became a model for generations of Jewish women who carried impossible burdens with dignity. Then there's Rebecca. She wasn't just the wife of Isaac, she was a strategist, playing a decisive role in guiding the blessing toward Jacob rather than Esau. Her choices literally shaped the lineage of Israel. Whether you agree with her methods or not, she knew the weight of destiny and acted on it. And who could forget Miriam, the sister of Moses? She's often overlooked, but Jewish tradition calls her a prophetess. Imagine the scene. A young girl standing at the edge of the Nile watching over her baby brother in a basket. That single act of courage set the stage for the Exodus itself. Later, Miriam would lead the women in song after crossing the Red Sea, a celebration of freedom that echoed through history. Now, let's talk about Deborah. This is one of my personal favorites. Deborah wasn't just a prophetess. She was a judge, a leader, and a military strategist. In a time when women weren't expected to lead armies, Deborah sat under her palm tree, dispensing wisdom, and then commanded Israel's troops in battle. That's not a background role, that's front and center. And of course, Esther, the young queen who risked her life to save her people from genocide under Haman. What's remarkable about Esther's story isn't just her beauty or her position, but her political brilliance. She understood timing, persuasion, and the power of speaking up at the right moment. Esther teaches us that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite fear. Here's the big takeaway. Women in ancient Judaism weren't simply supporting characters. They were political players, spiritual leaders, and culture shapers. Their stories challenge us to read history with new eyes, to see what's been hiding in plain sight. 2. The medieval era, surviving exile and persecution. Fast forward 1,000 years. The temple is destroyed. Jews are scattered across Europe and the Middle East, and persecution becomes a constant shadow. And once again, Jewish women carried the weight of survival. Take Donna Grazia Mendez Nasi, for example. If you've never heard of her, prepare to be amazed. She was a 16th century Jewish businesswoman from Portugal, one of the wealthiest women in Europe. After being forced into Christianity as a conversa, she secretly remained faithful to Judaism. But she didn't just protect herself. She used her wealth and influence to help other Jews escape persecution, almost like a one-woman underground railroad for her people. But beyond the powerful figures like Donna Gracia, there were countless women who lived quietly, holding on to tradition when public worship was forbidden. Imagine mothers in Spain and Portugal whispering Hebrew prayers in their kitchens, teaching their children the Shema while pretending to be Catholic. In many cases, women were the guardians of identity, the ones who made sure Judaism didn't vanish in the night. And this isn't just abstract history. I once read the story of a woman named Isabel from Toledo, who lived during the Spanish Inquisition. On the surface, she went to Mass like everyone else, but at night, she would light Shabbat candles in her cellar, hidden from neighbors. Her faith lived in shadows, but it burned just as bright. These women remind us that resilience doesn't always look like armies or revolutions. Sometimes it looks like quiet defiance, the courage to keep a tradition alive when the world tells you to forget. When we think of Jewish history in the early modern era, roughly the 17th to 19th centuries, the spotlight often falls on rabbis, philosophers, and male revolutionaries. But if you zoom in, you'll see that women were deeply woven into the fabric of community survival and cultural innovation. 1. Early modern Jewish women. Between tradition and change. Life for Jewish women in the ghettos of Europe was far from easy. They lived in cramped quarters, often under discriminatory laws, and had limited opportunities compared to men. Yet many women managed to carve out their own niche, both economically and spiritually. For example, Gluckel of Hamelin, a Jewish woman from Germany in the 17th century, left behind a remarkable diary. In her writing, she didn't just document business dealings, though she was a savvy merchant, but also her thoughts on faith, family, and the trials of Jewish life. Imagine the courage it took to write so honestly, knowing her words might never be seen by the world. Today, Gluckel's diary is one of the rare windows we have into the emotional world of Jewish women from that time. Then there's Sarah Solom, a Venetian poet and philosopher. Living in the 1600s, she dared to engage with Christian scholars in debates about the soul and immortality. At a time when women, especially Jewish women, were expected to stay silent in public life, Sarah's intellect broke through barriers. She reminds us that Jewish women weren't just keepers of the home, they were also thinkers and cultural innovators. These stories show us that resilience can take many forms. Sometimes it's survival in the shadows, and sometimes it's stepping into the light with ideas that challenge the status quo. 2. Women in the Holocaust, the Untold Resistance. Now we enter one of the darkest chapters in human history, the Holocaust. When most people imagine this era, the dominant images are of suffering, persecution, and unimaginable loss. And yet within that darkness, countless Jewish women displayed acts of courage and defiance that deserve to be remembered. Let's start with Hannah Senesh. She was a Hungarian Jew who emigrated to British-controlled Palestine in the 1930s. But when she heard about the Nazis' mass murder of Jews, she couldn't stay away. Hannah volunteered for a dangerous mission to parachute into Europe, help rescue Jews, and assist Allied forces. She was eventually captured, tortured, and executed by the Nazis at just 23 years old. Before her death, she wrote poems that are still recited in Israel today. One of her most famous lines reads, "Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame." She became that flame, burning briefly, but lighting the darkness. Then there's the story of the women who participated in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Many of them were teenagers, messengers, smugglers, fighters, risking everything to resist Nazi control. Women like Zivia Lubdetkin, who co-founded the Jewish Fighting Organization, took up arms in an impossible fight. She later said that they fought not because they thought they would win, but because they refused to die without dignity. But resistance didn't always look like holding a weapon. Sometimes it looked like mothers smuggling scraps of bread to children, or women secretly teaching Hebrew songs in the ghettos so that culture would not die.
There's a haunting story of a young woman named Faye Schulman who was deported with her family. After escaping, she joined a group of partisan fighters in the forests of Eastern Europe. She not only fought with them, but also served as their photographer, documenting their battles. Her photos remain some of the only images of Jewish resistance in the wilderness. What strikes me most about these women is that their resistance wasn't just physical. It was spiritual, cultural, and deeply personal. They resisted by refusing to let the Nazis strip them of their humanity. 3. Real story: a mother's courage in Auschwitz. One story that always stays with me is that of a woman named Mala Zimmetbaum, a Belgian Jew deported to Auschwitz. Unlike many prisoners, Mala spoke multiple languages, which allowed her to work as a camp interpreter. She used that position not to save herself, but to help others, warning them of selections, passing secret messages, and smuggling food. Eventually, Mala attempted to escape Auschwitz with her partner, Edward Galinsky. They were caught, and she was sentenced to death. But even at the gallows, Mala resisted. Instead of letting the Nazis hang her, she slit her wrists with a hidden razor blade, shouting words of defiance to the prisoners watching. Her act of rebellion gave courage to thousands in the camp. When I first read her story, I couldn't stop thinking about the sheer strength it takes to resist even when there's no chance of survival. Mala's legacy isn't just about death. It's about the power of dignity in the face of absolute horror. So what do we take from this chapter of history? Here's the big lesson. Jewish women have always been the backbone of survival. Whether it was Gluckel of Hamelin writing her diary in the ghetto, Hannah Senesh parachuting into danger, or mothers teaching their children Hebrew lullabies in the shadow of death, these women carried the faith, culture, and hope of their people. Too often, history books reduce them to victims or wives of great men. But the reality is far richer. They weren't just reacting to history, they were actively shaping it. And maybe this is where it becomes personal for us. Each of us, in our own lives, faces moments of pressure, fear, or uncertainty. We may not be standing in Auschwitz or leading armies like Deborah, but the question is the same. Will we give in to fear, or will we carry the light forward? These women remind us that even in the darkest times, small acts of courage can ripple across generations.
When the Holocaust ended, the world stood in shock. 6 million Jews were gone. Entire communities erased. For Jewish women, survival meant more than just staying alive. It meant carrying the weight of memory, rebuilding families, and finding a voice in a new world. Post-Holocaust survivors, rebuilding out of ashes. Imagine being a mother, a daughter, a sister, emerging from Auschwitz or Bergen-Belsen with nothing but the clothes on your back. Many women faced the impossible task of rebuilding their lives after losing everything. Take the story of Gisela Perl, a Jewish doctor from Hungary who survived Auschwitz. In the camp, she was forced to work as a prisoner doctor, often under horrific conditions. After liberation, she moved to the United States, rebuilt her career, and dedicated her life to helping women give birth, a striking contrast to the destruction she had witnessed. Every child she delivered became an act of defiance against the genocide she survived. Another example is Elie Wiesel's wife, Marion Wiesel. While Elie became the voice of Holocaust memory through his writings, Marion worked quietly in the background, translating his works, supporting survivors, and ensuring the stories would not be forgotten. Her contribution is rarely highlighted, but without women like her, much of that testimony might never have reached the wider world. These stories teach us something profound. Survival is not passive. It's a daily act of choosing life even when death has stolen so much. Jewish women in Israel, nation building and beyond.
As the State of Israel was founded in 1948, women again stepped into history. Golda Meir is the most famous example. Rising from a poor immigrant background in the United States, she became Israel's first, and so far only, female prime minister. Known as the Iron Lady of the Middle East long before Margaret Thatcher, Golda navigated wars, diplomacy, and political turmoil with a toughness that earned respect even from her enemies. But beyond politics, countless Jewish women were the ones building kibbutzim, collective farms, raising families under rocket fire, and shaping the cultural soul of the nation. Think of Naomi Shemer, who wrote Jerusalem of Gold, a song that became almost a second national anthem. Her lyrics captured the longing and spirit of a people returning to their ancient homeland. Of course, their roles weren't without struggle. Women often had to fight for recognition in a society that still leaned heavily on male leadership. Yet they carved out their space, proving again that nation building is never just about generals and politicians. It's also about mothers, artists, and everyday women holding communities together. Jewish women in the diaspora, redefining identity. While Israel was rising, Jewish women in the diaspora, especially in America and Europe, were navigating a different battle: identity. How do you remain distinctly Jewish in a secular, modern world without losing your traditions? Writers like Cynthia Ozick tackled this tension head-on, weaving Jewish themes into literature that spoke to both Jews and non-Jews. Activists like Bella Abzug, a fiery congresswoman from New York, brought Jewish values of justice and fairness into American politics. And then there's Judith Plaskow, often called the first Jewish feminist theologian. She challenged the male-dominated structure of Jewish tradition, asking, "Where are the women in our sacred texts?" Her groundbreaking book, Standing Again at Sinai, reshaped the conversation about gender and faith in Judaism. Their work reminds us that history isn't static. It evolves as each generation asks new questions and challenges old assumptions. Real-life story: a grandmother's legacy. Let me share a personal kind of story that echoes across so many Jewish families. A friend once told me about his grandmother, a Holocaust survivor who never wrote books, never led armies, never held political office. But she had a small apartment in Brooklyn, and every Friday night, she gathered her children and grandchildren around the table for Shabbat dinner. Her challah bread was legendary in the neighborhood. But more than that, her stories, told in fragments between laughter and tears, kept alive the memory of those who were gone. She never called herself a hero, yet her simple act of preserving tradition became the anchor of her family's Jewish identity. It made me realize, not all heroes are in history books. Sometimes the most profound legacies are carried in kitchens, dining rooms, and bedtime stories. Modern Jewish women, a global voice. Today, Jewish women are everywhere, in politics, science, arts, and activism. From Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who fought tirelessly for gender equality, to Gal Gadot, who became an international icon as Wonder Woman. Jewish women continue to shape global culture. But perhaps what's most powerful is the way they balance tradition with modernity. Many still light Shabbat candles, still tell the old stories, but they also lead tech companies, write best-selling novels, and march for justice. This balancing act of being deeply rooted yet globally engaged is something we can all learn from. Final takeaway: why these stories matter? So, what's the lesson in all of this? It's that history is never just about kings, generals, or famous men. It's about the voices that too often go unheard, the women who resisted, rebuilt, and redefined what it meant to be Jewish. Their courage wasn't always loud, but it was steady. It was the courage to write a diary in a ghetto, to parachute into Nazi territory, to raise children in the ashes of war, or to question tradition so that faith could grow stronger. And here's where it connects back to us. In our own lives, we may not face armies or genocides, but we do face struggles: fear, doubt, loss, identity. The stories of these women show us that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about acting with hope, even when the future feels uncertain. When we carry forward their stories, we're not just remembering the past, we're shaping the future.